Hello and welcome to a video explaining why Christopher Columbus was actually a good guy and why he was unjustly slaughtered in the name of his legacy, really. It is astounding how much liberals are hating on this very, very influential great man. Now, I do concede that while many historical figures have their own flaws, it is very clear that when you respect a man like Washington, who had slaves, or Thomas Jefferson, who had slaves, it is completely contradictory to get mad that Columbus allowed slavery in his land ostensibly. And let me tell you something about this very plain and very clearly. Without Columbus, we would not be here in the Americas. More specifically, the Hispanic people would not be where they are right now if it had not been for the greatness of Christopher Columbus. It is very important that you must understand how the world was depicted back then, and that was to say that the world was seen to be that if you go west, you would hit the East Indies. Okay, you would hit the Indian continent, the Spice Lands, the Chinamen, all that area. So it was obvious to then, at the time, those Catholics, Columbus was a Catholic. He was raised with that understanding and teaching that if you were to go west far enough, he would get a shortcut, maybe, to the mainland of China. So it is clear that he had a motivation to do what he did, and it took a lot of balls, really, to go around and sail guided by the stars, honestly, with no real map as to where he is going, and to discover such a great land. He discovered Cuba, he discovered Hispaniola, and he eventually, through his own efforts, made it to Mexico. So it is very clear that he impressively was able to map out such a great area, and it invested in it. And it took a lot for him to get the attention and lobby the Portuguese and then the Spanish government, for the Spanish government to sponsor a fleet to go and explore the Americas. And it's clear that he had a knack for obviously discovering this land that ultimately led to the flourishing of many civilizations at the time. And of course, it led to the death of most of the Indians. But is that really a bad thing? Well, was it a murder? People say it's a genocide. I don't remember Columbus ever saying that we should kill all the Indians at one time. And it is clear that the vast majority, I would say, and if you read textbooks, it says over, let's say, 80 to 95% of those Indians that were killed in that era of European colonization of these very low, densely populated areas in the Americas was clearly because of smallpox. Smallpox was an accident, it wasn't purposely spread for the most part. People talk about smallpox blankets. Who cares? I don't really care. Honestly, those Tainos and a lot of those Indians were not civilized much at all, and they were very degenerate. And, if you want to bring Christ into their lives, and if you want to bring European culture upon them, I believe that is a blessing in the large scheme of things. Not that there is a white man's burden to do so, but I just feel as if you're going to do it, then that's a good thing. There's a lot of good byproducts by him coming, really. And he influenced a new wave of people to come. People say that Columbus didn't discover America first. It was really the Chinese, which is ridiculous, because why didn't they colonize? So even if they got there first, I don't care. Let's see again. Who else got there first? The left says. They say, well, the Vikings got there first. Well, the Vikings supposedly found out that Canada, or some part of the Northeast, ostensibly, of the North American continent, was there, and they were there for a little while, and then they left, and they called it New Vineyard or whatever. And what happened? Nothing happened. Left it very quick, and none such a great land. And because of that, he converted virtually all, he led to the conversion, really, of the mass majority of these Indians into Catholicism and Protestant Christianity through the Anglos in a large extent. And it was really a humanitarian effort if you really look at it, because if you count that over 90% of these Indians died by accident, that leaves you with about 5 to 10% of those Indians that were murdered. And of those that were murdered, or were left alive, those all got to live amongst Europeans, which is really a blessing. And if you see an Indian reservation, you would see that even with subsidization from white people, they clearly are not as superior as even their Latin American counterparts to a large extent. And it is very obvious to the common eye, the common layman, that this European structure, constitutions, even monarchies to an extent, really extended a prosperity not seen other than maybe in the Aztec Empire. And even then, they had so much gold and did nothing with it, really. And that is exactly why. These people were a lost people, if you really look at it. And not to be very condescending, but I really think that Latin Americans are better off being mixed with a European, which was a consequence of Columbus discovering the area, than to not to, really. And people talk about, well, he raped people. He did not rape people, as far as I know, and if anything, you could say that his friends did that, but that wasn't him. Also, even if he did rape people, even if he did murder some people, and even if he called for the murder of people, I still think that he did an overwhelmingly well effort at colonization, but not only that, but he led to the obvious expansion of European dominance into the Americas, which helped the local populations in the long term, and it let Europeans settle the area and make it better and exploit it, really. So don't complain. This is the same BS they talk about in Africa, that the Europeans made it worse. The Europeans are the best thing that happened to that respective land in terms of South America being developed. Okay? And yes, slavery was bad, but now those black people live in a better area than they would have in Africa. Okay? That's very clear, very obvious. And you'd have to be delusional not to know that. That is clear as day, and some people won't say that as much, but I will. And Columbus Day is an important holiday because it recognizes that our American heritage was founded by an Italian man under a Spanish banner that really expanded everything to the European mindset and to the European people, and that they were able to help the Indian man who submitted to them and build a civilization that is very diverse yet very united in a large extent. When you look at Mexico, when you look at other countries that are mixed racially, but yet still have a common racial identity, and it's a very beautiful thing, really. And it's mainly because of that pinnacle person, that very particular person, Christopher Columbus. And for the left, and for Antifa, and for blacks to be tearing down his statues are just atrocious. And for them to have statues of Vladimir Lenin just standing around, I don't see why they don't just get bulldozed. Why don't we take down those communist statues? If they're going to take away statues from the Confederacy and take statues down from colonization people, like, really, it's kind of ridiculous. These people, such as Christopher Columbus, really did well. And to just taint him over some rape accusations from 600 years ago, 500 years ago, literally, makes no sense to denigrate a person like that. The whole rock of Protestantism was from Martin Luther, who was accused of pretty perverted things, but that doesn't discredit the entire thing that he contributed to, which was Protestantism, that affects millions of people in a positive way. The same thing with you could even say Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was a pervert, and he was an adulterer, and, the FBI accuses him of watching rapes in hotel rooms, but I don't think that really takes away too much of him bringing equality to the Negro man in America and minorities in general. That's a beautiful thing as well. But to cancel somebody over his worst parts, I think, is really astoundingly bad. Very bad, even. Very, very, very bad. Okay? Nobody accuses Stalin of watching his son die and bleed to death. Okay? Why? Because there's more important stuff that happened then. And do I really need to go one by one on every of these accusations and every charge that was against Christopher Columbus? This guy was a devout Catholic in a large extent, and it's very clear that the religion really influenced the man, and it's obvious as well that all these charges against him were really not him himself. It was people doing his bidding by proxy, maybe. For example, it was told that Christopher Columbus gave up a slave to one of his friends, and the friend raped the woman. What does that have to do with Columbus? Also, it's even written there that she was in his cabin, in the ship, in his cabin really naked, which was their custom. These people were savages. Why are they naked? That's disgusting. To be out there naked. See? So this just shows these people were really, really, really not living their fullest life. And it is clear that them living under a certain culture really benefited their civilization. And even though there are largely in reservations in America, at least in Latin and Hispanic America, they were seen on a more equal footing basis as they were race mixed into the European stratosphere, really. And it's an insult to Italians as well. Andrew Cuomo even defended Christopher Columbus. He's a very important Italian immigrant figure, as he was able to really bring a certain quality of life and just an astounding amount of opportunity and free trade among Europe and in the Americas. Very, very good guy, not only for Indians, but for white people, for everybody really involved. It benefited. America is the greatest country that existed or will ever exist, as far as I know. And it has really been a great blessing to be born in a country such as this one, to where, a minority should be able to say, would I be better off in Africa or here, They want to destroy Christopher Columbus's statue, yet they don't want to leave America, and for a good reason. Because America is a great country, and to ruin its history makes you more likely to repeat those same mistakes, and it is clear that these people are hypocrites, specifically Antifa, because they are the people that want to defund the police, yet want their own communist supremacist order, and that is just plain faggotry. And what is that to say? It is to say that you cannot be contradicting yourself so much. That is just astoundingly dumb. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching the video. Comment if you're watching this on Columbus Day. I think it already passed me. That's a school thing. He's a great guy.